everyone, welcome to the debate. I'm your host Sana Maqbool with you at PTV World. In today's show, we're going to be taking a look at two important stories. The first is in reference to the increase in the series of attacks that we have seen, especially in the province of KP and Balochistan in the recent days, and the unfortunate spike in terrorist activities in the country. We know that earlier today also there was an attack in Peshawar on Warsak Road in which at least 6 people, including 4 children, were injured in an IED blast, and this happened today morning, and a number of others have been shifted to Lady Reading Hospital in Peshawar as well. And of course, serious investigation is underway as directed by the caretaker Prime Minister, who also condemned the blast along with other senior leaders of the caretaker settlement, different political parties. However, of course, what remains to be seen is what is going to be done in the rise of such terrorist activities in the country and what really is going to be the way forward. We've also seen an attack on the weekend in Gilgit-Baltistan, which was also conducted on a bus that was traveling on Karakoram Highway, and in a lot of gunfire that ensued. 9 people at least lost their lives as well. The target of which is also not clear, but it could be, according to many reports, due to sectarian issues, or also because 2 military personnel were also part of the same bus. At the same time, we have also not been able to pinpoint the target of today's attack, but what we know for sure is that the province of Khyber Pakhtunkhwa and also Balochistan have seen a rise in terrorist activities, particularly after the ceasefire ended from the Tehreek-e-Taliban Pakistan. And of course, in terms of what we have seen previously as well, there has been a huge rise in activities, in terrorist activities in these provinces, with about 34% increase in the last month alone. So this is something that we really want to see moving forward, have a proper plan and strategy in place. Of course, we know that the policy of zero tolerance has been reiterated by the leaders of the country, but what is going to be the plan forward, particularly in terms of the elections that are also upcoming, and the leadership of both KP and Balochistan also highlighting security concerns hindering a lot of political activities. So what is going to be the way forward and what will be done about this is going to be under discussion today. We will also be taking a look at the situation in terms of the conduct of the election themselves. There were a lot of reports circulating about in terms of rumors of a delay in elections, despite the fact that a date has already been announced, and a lot of activities, especially with regards to the ECP, are pointing towards the same date. And this is something that was also highlighted once again when issues of budget also arose, with the ECP talking about how the finance division has not yet released the funds, something that now has also been rectified. We know that today 17.4 billion rupees were released to the ECP, adding to the previous 10 billion tranche that was released earlier this year, making a total of 27.4 billion rupees for the elections. It's still short of what the ECP had asked for, but it does solidify the claim that the elections are going to be held on time, with preparations also going underway. But we're going to be discussing that in terms of what really lies ahead, whether or not there is any possibility in any other way of a delayed elections, and what sort of measures are being taken by the ECP and the government to ensure that that is not the case. For this and more, of course, I've been joined in the studios today by senior analyst Raja Faisal, and he's going to be part of the discussion. We're also going to be joined by our analysts online, and today we've also been joined by Farrukh Pitafi online, who's traveling, and so he's not in the studios with us, but he will be part of the discussion as always. And we will also be joined by Brigadier Retired Mr. Waqar Khan, who's a senior analyst for discussion, especially with regards to the issue of security in Pakistan. Thank you very much, Mr. Waqar, for joining us and being part of the discussion. And I'll start with you, considering the kind of increase in terrorist activities that we've seen, including today's attack in Peshawar and the attack over the weekend in Gilgit-Baltistan. This is something that unfortunately we've seen previously as well, targeting certain remote areas of the country and certain provinces much more than other. And then especially now, given the timing that Pakistan is going through, both politically and economically, and the kind of security concerns that we've had, especially after the ceasefire with the TTP, what can possibly be done in terms of preventing these attacks and making sure that we are able to close all loopholes which somehow seem to still remain open?
Hard and soft targets that terrorists are selecting. If you look at Balochistan and KP, they've been attacked on civil forces in the airport. And now we have seen in GB and in Europa, attacks on purely civilian targets and soft targets. And there are, I think, three major reasons for that. One is, of course, Pak-Afghan relationship, the repatriation issue, because a lot of people in, I think, Afghan government, Taliban, don't like it. And I think they've also conducted some veiled threats. But of course, the decision is by the state in the interest of Pakistan. And inshallah, it will continue. I think we have now almost 400,000 illegal Afghans repatriated, and it's going to continue. The other reason is, of course, the launching of CPEC 2. If you look at the head is GB and the bottom side is Gwadar or Balochistan. So they are trying to basically create a perception of insecurity in both head and the end, so that the investment doesn't come. Of course, that could be supported by Indian hostile agencies. The third factor is, of course, Indian elections and a lot of pressure that has come on India in I think past 3 months, starting from Canada, then you had London and Qatar, and now the US charging one of their, I think, raw operatives in United States. He's been, I think, caught in Czech Republic, and he'll be brought for facing the trial. So there's a lot of pressure on Modi government now. It may be a deflection tactics, and then you combine it with the elections coming up next year, in the middle of next year. Indian elections, definitely Pakistan elections are going to be earlier than that. But their main card is anti-Muslim and anti-Pakistan, and somehow they would like to create a sense of insecurity in Pakistan to basically then drive some space for votes for Modi. Modi is already, I think, won in 3 out of 4 states in recent state elections, which indicates that the Hindutva card is definitely becoming successful, and the vote bank politics is making gains for Modi. So all told, I think this is the environment. But on the other side, the law enforcement, the military, and the intelligence are fighting it hard. And we have fought it for last 2 decades. And I feel that this is the last year. Maybe 2024 will be the last year when the vestige of terror will be uprooted from Pakistan.
Right, and of course that is the hope. But let's talk a little bit more about what we're dealing with here. And Farrukh, I'd like to take your perspective also in terms of, especially when we take a look at different attacks, what really are the number of factors that are involved in how we're able to deal with each one of them, particularly when we talk about how certain provinces or certain areas of the country are targeted more so than others. Do we have a targeted strategy for provinces such as KP and Balochistan? Do we also have a way of dealing with cross-border militantism that we've also seen, especially coming in from India and then also from Afghanistan? How exactly are we dealing from that sort of infiltration and activity, especially again within these regions? And then also the issues of sectarian violence and how all of that is embedded in all of the kind of violent activities or terrorist incidents that we see, such as that that we have seen in the past couple of days or months.
Yeah, I think the issue of sectarian violence.
Right, I'll come back to you, Brigadier Waqar, and let me just get Farrukh's perspective on this as well. Yes.
Right. Thank you very much, Sana, for the opportunity and for the question. I think I'll start from the very end where you actually spoke about sectarian terrorism. Pakistan is no stranger to sectarian terrorism, and that has been happening. I remember my own youth was spent in the days when there was a spike of that. But at this moment, there seems to be more complications. For example, you have rightly pointed out what are the areas that are being targeted. These are the areas which are primarily, apart from KP, these are the regions that are a crucial part of CPEC. So whatever Brigadier Saab was actually pointing out is correct. But my concern is a little more than that. What should be our response? Of course, we are repatriating, illegal immigrants, and we will continue to do that. But apart from that, what exactly can we do? I think in coming days, what we are going to see is hardening of the borders, because that is where you see incursions actually take place. and those are the people who actually come across and aid and abet the terrorists as well. Then the second thing that is very important, and I think that intelligence-based operations will pick up in coming days because it is very important. First of all, regarding what you were saying earlier, what you were pointing out regarding the aggression that we saw a couple of years ago when government of Pakistan under PTI's influence actually ended up cutting deal with certain elements, and then those elements actually found a foothold. I think in coming days, regardless of what your enemy does, what you have to do is you have to fight back and you have to actually smoke the terrorist out. So that will be done in coming days, there's no doubt in my mind. And of course, those who are actually carrying out these things are doing it in desperation because they haven't been able to stop CPAC and they haven't been able to stop other investments either. Finally, regarding India's internal politics and how India might actually be stoking all these elements or these sentiments in Pakistan or these activities, I understand that it is India's a well-considered policy that has continued for quite some time. But we saw something interesting during the Karnataka elections when Pakistan was on the boil, and at that time we saw that Indian Modi's BJP actually lost the election in Karnataka. This time it was more a pacifist kind of environment towards Pakistan, at least on the surface, at least publicly. So this time it seems that his own constituency reward him whenever he is not trying to publicly mess with Pakistan. In coming days, I think that there is a chance that India might actually want to tone down this as well, because internationally they have actually found guilty of many crimes, from Canada to the US to UK and umpteen other places, and including Qatar. But regarding Pakistan's own response, Sana, we have to fight them till the time every terrorist has been eliminated.
Right, absolutely, and that is what is needed at the moment. But a number of policies, of course, have already been aligned in that sense, Faisal. When we take a look at how it has been reiterated time and again that there is zero tolerance against terrorists, and all parties have also agreed upon the fact that this is something that we want to proceed with. Of course, our military and security personnel are also on board with the same kind of strategy, and a complete national plan was also formulated to making sure that this was actually the case. At the same time, we've taken drastic measures also in terms of policies such as with regards to the illegal immigrants within the country, to control any sort of illegal activity within the country. But I want to understand whether or not, if we're able to look at, especially since the end of the ceasefire from the TTP, that we have actually gained in terms of helping secure our own lands. Is there something that you can tell me that we have actually sort of won, or there is triumph involved in which we have helped and eased the kind of security concerns we've had?
Yes, Anna, if we obviously look at our western border with Afghanistan, I mean, that is where we are facing all of the challenges from, in terms that of any threat which is faced by Pakistan originates two of the provinces of Afghanistan. Time and again we have discussed about them, Kunnar and Nangarhar, because this is where normally these are considered as safe havens for TTP. And we shouldn't be forgetting that TTP was hand in glove with the Taliban regime, the current Taliban regime of Afghanistan, and that is why they have been doing their business with ease since more than a couple of years now. Important to mention here is that initially when the regime change took place in Kabul, Pakistan, of course, wanted to give a chance to Afghanistan because Taliban pledged and they committed to it that we will never allow our land to be used against any of the neighboring countries of Afghanistan, including Pakistan. Then they will not be letting their land to be used. But of course, that did not liquidated. I mean, on ground, the situation is that all of the attacks which are faced by Pakistan, they are originating from within Afghanistan, and somehow in majority of the cases, almost all of the cases, I must say, somewhere down the line, either the one who commits to suicide bomb, he or facilitator, or somehow someone who's involved down the line is actually an Afghan citizen living illegally in Pakistan. And I think it was very well done of Pakistan to initiate a withdrawal, or I must say expulsion of all of the illegal settled Afghan citizens in Pakistan. And I think that's how it should be, and it was a brilliant stance by Pakistan, and I think it needs to be tightened more on the borders. And I would agree with Farrukh when he says that in coming months, of course, we need to keep a check, a tight check on our Durand line, and of course that border, the international border, must be secured in coming months. And at the same time, we should not be going away from the diplomatic resolve to it, as we know that the regime sitting in Kabul is facing a challenge itself, as they claim, from ISIS Khorasan as well. ISIS Khorasan is in the same provinces, Kunnar and Nangarhar, and they are having good relations with TTP, BLA, ETIM, IMU, all of them. They are living together there. So right. I believe somehow diplomatic channels must be used as well. We should not be forgetting, Sana, that I would agree with Brigadier Waqar when he mentions that India is obviously utilizing all the resources to keep Pakistan busy on the Western Front. Why? Because India itself is facing two fronts right now. And of course, with India facing two fronts, what India wants to do is, India wants to keep Pakistan busy on the Western Front so that Pakistan's focus is on the Western Front and Pakistan forgets about the Eastern Front. And I think India must remember that Pakistan may be facing problems on the Western Front, but when it comes to Eastern Front, I mean, we are always prepared, we are always ready for anything. And I think February 2019 was a brilliant example of it, that we gobsmacked India when it was required, and I think that's how it should be. And India must remember that we have probed all of the channels they have been using. Of course, the dossiers, they have been maintained by Pakistan in terms that India has been utilizing all of the sources in Kabul.
You mentioned earlier also, Faisal, that all diplomatic channels must be utilized, but I want to understand what exactly do you mean by that, and what sort of channels remain to be explored, and what sort of benefit has there been of previous channels? You mentioned dossiers, but have they added any value to our situation?
Yes, they have added value to it, and of course now world has started understanding about India, that the things they have been utilizing, the things they have been applying throughout the world. Of course, this was happening in Afghanistan for Pakistan. I mean, if we take the example of the previous regime, previous regime has been facilitating India in terms of whatever they wanted to ignite in Pakistan, and Kulbhushan Yadav is one of the examples of it. He was facilitated in Afghanistan very well, and of course he's been quite active in Pakistan, and he was caught red-handedly in Pakistan. But when it comes to me talking about the diplomatic channels, Sana, I mean, Brigadier Waqar would agree with me that there are unseen diplomatic channels which can be used. People who are normally very silent down the line, they can be utilized in terms of better future of Pakistan and Afghanistan, both of the countries. And I think Taliban regime sitting in Afghanistan, sitting in Kabul, they must remember that peace is the only resolve. And if they are committed to peace in the region, it is not only going to benefit Pakistan, but of course it will benefit Afghanistan itself and Afghanistan after decades of war.
Sana, very quickly wanted to make an intervention.
But I want to explore that further. Yes, Farrukh.
Very quickly, I just wanted to point out that we can continue to talk about Afghanistan, we can continue to talk about other countries, but one of the reasons why we are in such a pickle, may it be political, may it be economic, may it be, war and terror related, is because we are sparing people who made critical decisions and threw away victories in the past, in the last 2 years of PTI. Till the time we don't hold all of them accountable, these issues will continue to haunt us.
Right, and this is something I want to talk to you as well, Brigadier Waqar, given the fact that when we talk about the involvement of countries like India and Afghanistan and how we need to engage both diplomatically and internationally as well in terms of how we want to proceed further to make the regimes accountable and to help secure our own land. I want to also understand that while we have that expectation, while we have that outlook moving externally from the country, what are we doing about the factors inside the country, especially as Farrukh pointed out, with people in decision-making roles who have contributed to the current situation, and for accountability at home? Is there a measure in place for that as well?
Yeah, I think in the hindsight, it is important that those decisions which are basically affecting Pakistan's economy and Pakistan's security, people have made accountable. But on Afghanistan, I also have a view that, in last 300 years, there have been 60 wars. And this is known as the shutter zone, mainly Afghanistan and our bordering areas. And since 1947, I think there has never been a very, very peaceful arrangement between Pakistan and Afghanistan. So Afghanistan has always used, coercion and terrorism as a tool. And so it means that we have to deal with any government in Kabul on day-to-day basis. I even think that it's very difficult to draft a long-term policy. But now coming on to the accountability, I think CN to, let's say, mainstream terrorists like TTP who were responsible for, APS attack and killing our children and women. I think that is really, it was, I think, a blunder, I would say. And since we are now into a realm where the CNs listen to Pakistan's own interest, as the Chief of Army Staff said, that even one Pakistani's, life and honor is more important than relationship with any other country. So it will not be at the cost of Pakistani lives. So I think that is a major decision, a major shift also. And it was also required. At the peak of Russian invasion, there were 5 million Afghan refugees here. We welcomed them, opened our hearts and doors. And in the second intervention by the US, we had 17.5 lakh. Some of these were supposed to go to the West. Almost, I think, more than 500,000 were to absorbed by the West, because these were part of the elite which were working with Karzai and Shawani government and the Americans. So even the international community, I think, abandoned these people. Now the decision is to repatriate, and I think almost 400,000 means that almost 25% are already gone, and it will continue. So it's important that those decisions which were taken by the PTI government or their support groups, even in military, they should be asked why such decision was taken. What was the need for normalization of this terrorist group or mainstreaming of, because it's not really possible. Were they aiming to hand over, some of the areas to PTP and give them so much space to create more problem? There was the political agenda behind it to destabilize Pakistan. So I think that is also important, must be made accountable. But ultimately, I think that the decision taken by the state and government, I think, moving on correct trajectory. We have fought for 2 decades, the war on terror, and inshallah, I feel that 2024 will be end of it. And Taliban also realized, because if they have leverage of terrorism, against Pakistan. That is the only leverage they have. Or maybe they can, let's say, start cooperating with a hostile power. But otherwise, Pakistan has 6, 7 leverages, starting from one transit trade. Even I think the food products, the commodities, cement, health and education, and then of course, ultimately is the ports of Gwadar and Karachi. And then even their diplomatic case was fought by Pakistan. Their first investment conference was held in Islamabad. How many countries have diplomatic relation? And look at Indian hypocrisy that the Afghan Taliban had to shut down their, mission in India or their embassy because India was not allowing them to post their own ambassador. So that's hypocrisy. And then India brought a law, just to stop the Afghan Muslim immigrants because they knew when the Americans will leave, there'll be a wave of immigrants. So they just allowed Hindus and Sikhs. So it was a very clever move by Modi that they will not allow any Muslims coming from Afghanistan. Totally, I think 15,000 Afghans are there in India, and this is the total immigrants absorbed in last 20 years. So it's really shameful and hypocrisy. And now they become, they're trying to become their good friend. Daily we have twisted stories coming from Indian media. I think I saw an ANI report today regarding some Afghan official, although it was all fake. So I think Taliban should also understand who is their friend and who is their enemy. It's the same India which was helping Ashwini and Karzai, giving them weapons to attack the Taliban factions when they were out of power. So I think that is the equation. It is understood. I think the decision is very clear, and maybe with some losses, Pakistan will inshallah move, and we'll find economy also getting onto track. We were spending like $4 billion a year on these illegal immigrants. You calculate $2,000 a year is the minimum. Because Turkey, calculates $10,000 per refugees, and Germany calculates at $20,000 per refugee. So lowest level that a state would spend, I'll apply that formula. So it was $4 billion a year that was costing us with that economy. So I think we'll have to follow that.
Right, Brigadier Waqar, you also mentioned in terms of what we have done before, how we have succeeded in fighting terrorism in the past and how we will do so in the future. And of course, that is the hope that we're building on. But I want to understand also, if we take a look back at how exactly we achieved that and the all-out military operation that was conducted, it was a very coordinated and aggressive strategy that was needed to actually proceed with that and then to actually accomplish it. And it took a long time and a lot of resources and a lot of our soldiers on ground. Do you propose that, given the current scenario and the rise in terrorist activities, when we talk about defeating terrorism again, do we mean similar military operations? Are they also on the agenda, or should they also be something that we need to see sometime soon? Whether or not that will be the right strategy, the recommended strategy, in your opinion?
Yeah, I think look at the quantum of threat. Probably is not really doesn't warrant. Although there are plans ready in case there is a need. But in that time, when Zabiyaz was launched or Radul Prasad was launched, basically that time TTP was well entrenched here, and you had to flush out, and you had to actually ask people, and people of KP and Balochistan, I think, paid a heavy price. They sacrificed their homes. They moved from there, and then the military came and basically sanitized the area. But now I think basically these are the sneak attacks, and for that intelligence-based operations are taking place. And we also have, I think, high-tech systems which can pick up, these terrorists. And wherever I think there's a need, it depends. So some special forces are used for, flushing them out. But it's going to continue. I don't think so. There's a need to now relocate people. So it will be, the only problem was that these 17.5 lakh, illegal immigrants, although they are also our brothers and sisters, but it creates a space. You don't know who's where, and so you found 16 out of terrorist attack. I think 16 Afghans were involved, and one of them, I think, as was mentioned, was carrying official documents. So actually, Taliban are trying to now make the entire Afghan, refugees suspects. It's very unfortunate. Those who are here, or those who, and there are 300,000 Afghans which cross every month into Pakistan for different reasons, for education, for health. There are women who come for, time to get support. in their
Right,
for
and I
their labor.
understand where you're
And
coming from, Brigadier Waqar, but they're not the only ones who are terrorists, and we've had reports of people who are terrorists in the country who are not Afghans.
yeah, of course, there are, but I said almost 50% are from. And then there are definitely there are sleeper cells like what is happening in GB and what happened even some of the areas in Sindh and Balochistan. They were not Afghan, but mainly they were supported by Indian hostile agencies like Research Analysis or NIA. And then they have definitely international connections. They can
Okay.
even sneak through different countries. Yeah.
Right. Thank you very much, Brigadier Waqar Khan, for joining us and being a part of the discussion. Farrukh, I also want two questions from you. One, in terms of particularly when we talk about the policy with regards to illegal immigrants in the country, and I know it's an ongoing process at the moment, but whether or not you think that this has or will eventually be beneficial in our counterterrorism activities. And also when we talk about the way that we want to proceed further, especially in light of the upcoming elections, do you feel that the more increase in terrorist activities is expected? And then what sort of measures will be taken to ensure that there is the kind of political activity that is needed prior to the elections, especially in the provinces of KP and Balochistan?
Right, Sana. First of all, regarding the success of repatriation effort of these illegal immigrants, whether they are Afghan or whether they are from some other country, one thing is for sure. When you talk about the commitment or the theoretical idea, it is very sound. Anybody, any loose body that is inside your country is definitely prone to be used by elements that can destabilize your country. So flushing them out, sending them back, repatriating them, whatever you may call it, eventually is supposed to have a better result. But the only problem that or concern that I've been seeing, and that's why I will wait for the courts to speak on this matter, is the execution, especially because policies are made at the macro level, at the top level, and the execution actually takes place at the grassroots level, where of course we are also human beings. There are people who might be corruptible as well, particularly police, other elements. So there has to be, as I pointed out the other day as well, that there has to be a feedback loop. For that matter, there has to be some kind of ombudsman-like solution where if somebody is deliberately being wronged by someone local due to their politics, that person can go there and seek justice. So this is my idea, but eventually if this task is completed, I'm sure that it will bring down such elements. Earlier, Brigadier Saab actually made a very good point that I cannot speak to actually rebel facade, but Zarb Azab and Sabat operations were the times when there were elements who were trying to create no-go areas in their region. So that was when the government actually launched a proper operation and then rooted them out. Now, at this moment, I think because there is no such area that is in their control, therefore you only need ideas, intelligence-based operations, which are smarter operations, where you don't have to actually rely on air power or for that matter heavy artillery. And it usually depends on a small, surgical team that goes and takes out the terrorists. So that will continue. Similarly, regarding elections and all these things, I believe that in coming days, in the past also we have seen elections while there was a surge of terrorism in the country. I think that the government of Pakistan and the state of Pakistan is fully capable of fighting back and ensuring that the elections take place in a calm and placid environment. My concern at this moment once again is regarding accountability, because I tell you, link this matter, Sana, with May 9th. And on May 9th, we keep on actually looking at PTI and how PTI actually wreaked havoc, which is correct. But there is a reason why we haven't been able to push this narrative of accountability further, because somehow we end up with blind spots. Till the time you have blind spots, Sana, we are going to have complications, and things will not succeed. We'll have to ensure that no one is spared who are actively undermine Pakistan's interest, may it be in the fight against terrorism, may it be on May 9th, or may it be on economic front.
Right, absolutely. And when we talk about, of course, the current political situation and the way it's going, we're also going to be taking a look at elections in the country and the kind of rumors that we've been seeing. And while we talk about security concerns, there's also, of course, a lot of economic and financial concerns that were raised. And Faisal, this issue also brought about a lot of debate around whether or not we're seeing a delay in elections, whether there's enough money to actually conduct it, and whether there's this momentum going where we won't be seeing elections in February 8th. But the kind of development that we've seen, particularly from the Finance Division in terms of delivering releasing the 17.4 billion rupees to the ECP in addition to the previous 10 that we've seen before, seems to be pointing towards the direction that they will happen on time. Do you believe that that is in fact the case, or is there any substance to the rumor mill that's going around?
I certainly believe that this is the case, that Election Commission obviously is going forward with the date 8th of February. Why? Because Finance Commission obviously it has issued the next amount as well. Earlier a smaller amount was given to Election Commission, and now 17.4 billion is obviously issued to Election Commission of Pakistan, and furthermore obviously the remaining amounts will be issued as well. And at the same time, I mean, there are certain other factors that are key for the election as well, and on that, of course, the conversation between the ECP and Interior Ministry or any relevant ministry is going on. Education Ministry, for the sake of argument, that of course Education Ministry and Interior Ministry both are quite involved when it comes to elections. So the number of policemen that are required for the security for the election process, of course they have been asked by ECP, Election Commission, and at the same time the message is conveyed to ECP by the Interior Ministry that this is the actual number that we can provide you with the policemen. Of course it is around 55 to 60% of the policemen that can be available at that day for the elections, and that is why this time around, as always, we have seen that Pakistan's security forces, of course Pakistan's military, it plays a very important role in terms of securing the elections and the process. The security on the day of election, it is quite important when it comes to Pakistan military. So this time around, of course, throughout Pakistan we will see that for the security purposes and for making the process smooth of the elections, of course all of the institutions, they will be involved. End of the day, state would make it possible that the free and fair elections and in-time elections, they are held in Pakistan, because it is a democratic process which Pakistan is following, and that is how a democratic country should be behaving when it comes to maintaining the values, the democratic values, and of course it is for a longer run better for Pakistan, for continuity of the system in Pakistan. So I'm all up for 8th of February, fingers crossed. I believe that ECP is going to conduct on the same date.
All right, Farrukh, there's also the concern that when we talk about the demand in terms of what resources were required to actually conduct the elections, the amount is still far from what has been released. And back in June, the government had allocated 42 billion for this. So will we be seeing the release of the next tranche, the remaining tranche very soon? And until that happens, would we be hearing more reports coming in that perhaps there isn't going to be timely elections in the country?
Right, Sana. And that actually, you have actually put your hand on the nub of the gist of the problem, and that is the instability that arises in this country, that because our punditry is mentally ill-equipped to deal with complexity, right? Right now, what is happening is that there is a dog whistle kind of situation where our pseudo-intellectuals, I'm sorry, I'm going to call them pseudo-intellectuals, or some intellectuals as well, keep on implying that for one reason or the other, there is going to be delay in the election, right? On the other side, when the state apparatus actually responds that that is not the case, they simply, make fun of it, and eventually when the state says, stop saying that, like Pembra did today, then we cry, we keep on complaining that somehow there is censorship and everything. Now, biggest problem right now, Sana, is that when it comes to me, and I can, in order to give you the answer, I would simply say, tell you about one tragic flaw that I have got. And that is when I actually start trusting somebody, it takes me a lot of time to step back and to a lot of evidence to convince me that that is not the case. When it comes to security, the army chief is doing whatever it takes. Similarly, there is a man called Qazi Faiz Isa, who is the Chief Justice of Pakistan, and he is primarily responsible for the date that was given. When on that day, he said that now the date is set in stone. So I have no reason to believe that any of these problems will stay, will come in the path of holding of elections, because now there is a date, and the schedule is going to be announced also. We have seen that the limitation has also taken place. So we keep on talking about these moving parts, but in the end, since we have a date, why not actually start showing some faith that there is going to be an election on that day, right? I think that that will happen. And to answer quickly the direct question that you asked, I think those resources will be released also, but the punditry will keep on complicating these things because they somehow get a rise out of these complications.
Absolutely. Thank you very much, Farrukh, for joining us and, of course, giving your insight. And thank you, Faisal, for your opinion as well. We're, of course, going to be seeing whether or not there is going to be a delay in elections. But what we're seeing in terms of the commitment and assurances coming in from the ECP and the swift responses from the caretaker setup, it is obvious that the elections are on track, and everything and all the measures that are required prior to the conduct of the election seem to be happening so far. So before we go on banking on whatever rumors and reports are circulating around, it's best to see what actually unfolds and then decide the matter. That's all that we have from the debate. We'll see you tomorrow.